Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Mishal Saeed, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and really the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we're thrilled to have Brian Enright, the founder and managing partner of Burgeon Capital Co., joining us. Brian brings over a decade of experience in not just franchising, but leading sales and marketing at fully managed and integrated health systems and some other companies. His firm helps aspiring entrepreneurs find the perfect franchise opportunities to achieve long-term success. We'll explore his founding story, how Burgeon Capital Co. is transforming franchise consulting, and really his vision for scaling this dynamic business. So let's dive in. Brian, welcome to Founders Future.
Michelle, thanks so much for having me and for that awesome introduction. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So let's kick things off for the listeners. We're excited to learn more about, your background and what got you started. So what was that specific gap or problem within the franchise landscape, perhaps around, the overwhelming number of franchise options, for instance, or finding like the right fit that, actually inspired you to start Burgeon Capital Co.
It starts back to when I was in a sales role as an independent contributor, just bouncing around, traveling. And every time I would stop for lunch at a QSR, quick service restaurant, I couldn't help myself but look into the investment, what it would take to, purchase one of those franchises. And after thinking about it for, truth be told, about 7 years, I finally decided to take action and I connected with a franchise consultant who I've maintained a really close relationship with. He helped me found a children's hair salon, which I've owned for 4 years now. And after we closed on that deal, I circled back with him and said, hey man, tell me a little bit more about your day because I just couldn't wait to hop back on the phone with you and learn about all these various opportunities. And I can't even count how many conversations I've had with peers over the years at conferences, trade shows, and folks that are selling something for someone else, wanting to do something for them, for their family, their community. And I felt there was a pretty big gap between people that not just had the desire, but the capability and all the various opportunities in these really cool, emerging, and brands that offer a ton of opportunity, not just to the prospective franchisee, but also to the communities that they're going to serve.
Love that. Love that really your personal experience shaped wanting this desire to help others, right? It's purpose driven and it starts from really yourself in that moment of realization. We are just talking about it before we press record. So, yeah, let's dive into the nuts and bolts for the listeners and even potential clients of yours tuning in once this episode is air. Would love for you to walk us through really how Burgeon Capital Co. generates revenue today. What's your core offer? I know you do franchise consulting, development support. How do you structure what you do for your clients? And who is really like your core ICP?
Sure. With my experience as a franchise consultant and franchisee, it's funny, you never really know what you're going to become when you grow up, and I'm still trying to figure that out, truth be told. But where I spend the majority of my day is, in fact, helping out my peers, other fellow franchise consultants with their marketing needs. So I'm a lead gen provider slash franchise consultant coach. I do some consulting as well, but my lion's share of my time is working with folks, and I've been doing that for close to a year and a half now. Franchise consulting is awesome. You are that liaison between the person that has this idea and the people that help them realize that idea. But it tends to be a pretty short-term relationship. I'm a bit more of a relationship guy, so I get to work with consultants for months, for years now. And I've created the opportunity to have my cake and eat it too, where I do franchise consulting a bit, really just enough to, yeah, have that revenue stream, but to also be in the trenches with my fellow consultants slash clients so I can add more value when I'm having one-on-ones with them. Over the past year and a half, even if I don't know anything, I've become a pretty good conduit of information. I'm very fortunate to have some very high producers as clients, and I did from very early on. So, folks that are either new to the space or new to the style of marketing that we assist them with, I've been able to provide a lot of value. And just over the past 2 weeks, I've gotten 5 text messages from people. Hey, Brian, I closed the deal. Hey, I helped this family out. Hey, I helped them find this thing. And so it's super rewarding. I feel blessed.
Amazing. So it sounds like, you are a master of all different trades. You're doing lead gen as well within your network, providing some of that, marketing support essentially, and then franchise consulting. What's your core focus right now, just as an entrepreneur? What's driving, most of the revenue for you as you start to scale your business? Like, if you can help us understand that, and then also, let's say someone does approach you and they want to work with you, what are some of those deliverables? Let's say after 30, 90 days, even like 6 months, a year, what are some of those deliverables and how is all of that packaged?
Sure. So the lion's share of my time is spent with my fellow franchise consultants, and that is where the lion's share of the revenue is generated. So, with most of your listeners, assuming most of them are not franchise consultants, I'm probably not going to help them become a better franchise consultant. But for those folks that have been thinking about doing that thing, being their own boss, marching to the beat of their own drum, I'd be an excellent resource to either help them find that thing, or chances are I'll probably connect them with someone who I think would be a better fit. Not all consultants are equal. I might be a better fit for you versus my buddy Steve or Jason or what have you that have just as much experience as I do, but it's just a better personality, match, if you will. Yeah.
So, in terms of typical client engagement, right? Is it like ongoing consulting? Is it like more project based, franchise matching, or is it like another format? How is like your offer productized as it is today?
So it's ongoing month to month. I'm not a believer in long-term contracts. I rather just continuously earn the business through providing value. And that's more so on the marketing service to my franchise consultant clients. I guess it's fair to say that on the franchise consulting, it's a bit more project based. A typical discovery process is about 4.3 months. And that would entail the individual kind of talking about who they are, where they come from, what they would like to do, their criteria, and then introducing them to some people that are worthy of their diligence and going through the discovery process in learning about different emerging brands that would have availability in markets that they have interest in positively impacting. So, just to be a bit succinct about the discovery process, quick introduction to the brand. They learn about the unit economics, staffing if applicable, lease and build out if applicable, marketing, unit economics, and then they have the opportunity to validate with other current owners of said brands.
Mm.
Basically, asking the question, hey, if you could go back in time, would you do this thing again? Hopefully, the answer is yes. It's not always yes. That's okay. That's part of the discovery process. Then, if everything makes sense, they're invited out to meet the team for the discovery day, hang out with all the players, the owners, the founders of the brand, and if
Yeah.
it mutually makes sense, move forward with the deal.
Love that. So
Yeah.
it sounds like there's a lot of work essentially involved in really finding out, the right alignment between brands and then anyone who is looking to become a franchisee. And that's, really the time that's spent really with that matchmaking process. Now, building on your growth, how are you currently acquiring some of your clients today? What are some of those channels working well on the lead gen side, whether it is like LinkedIn, organic marketing, referrals? How are you actually landing some of your clients for franchise consulting services?
100% referral based. I know I'm blessed. I know everyone would love to flip a switch and create that, but it comes from finding your niche. We've all heard the riches are in the niches. I've been in the space. I'm credible. I understand the market from different angles, and folks know the people that I've helped and they know that they are successful.
Mm.
So it does take a bit to get to that point. I do recognize how blessed I am, but that has nothing to do with the marketing that I provide the consultants, which they generate a ton of revenue. And simply that is, we're just running a number of ads in various markets with various business opportunities and brand expansions. and then just connecting the dot between the business buyers and the business sellers.
Got it. So from what it sounds like, a lot of, your client acquisition is primarily based on referrals. Have you tried anything on the paid ad side? So from what it sounds like you're doing that, externally for some of the, clients you're working with. Have you done anything on the paid ad side, internally for your business, just in regards to client acquisition?
For my business, no.
Okay. So that sounds interesting. With referrals, it sounds like, you've really built your network and, referrals tend to be like some of the most warmest leads out there. We've had a lot of guests, in the franchise consulting space, come on and they've shared as well that, sometimes it's not a very consistent or predictable way to like generate leads. How are you, as you're like looking to scale the business and unlock your next phase of growth, how are you looking at, creating more of that consistent, reliable lead flow? What are some of those ideas or like channels that you're exploring on that front so that you can start to expand the business?
Sure, yeah, a very good and fair question. And like most entrepreneurs, there's 1,500 things I would love to move forward on, but you only have so much time in the day.
Yeah.
One thing I've learned is you want folks to come to you. You don't want to have to chase, and that's why the referral thing works well. So continuing to serve the clients at the highest level of services I can provide, retaining the clients, referrals, I feel and have experience will continue. But let's say that all goes away. One thing that I've been wanting to do is frankly more of this being interviewed on podcasts, potentially launching my own podcast, maybe just starting with putting some video clips out on LinkedIn. I've been good at posting, but posting is getting boring. It's just video is everything. And what I would like to do is a little bit more, or just some of that, because I haven't quite frankly started with it, and just in a manner that I just take the questions that I'm asked every day, I address those questions, provide the answers, and just share. And I firmly believe that when people find value in that, they'll come, and if we're a good fit, we get to work together. If not, that's no big deal either.
Yeah, 100%. So much power and thought leadership, so much of it out there, especially on LinkedIn. So that's
Yep.
really cool. You're exploring some ways. I know you're wearing a lot of hats right now, so it's probably going to take some time, but finding different ways at least to, get your messaging out there, start tapping into some of those other, oceans of audiences that might not be apparent on the surface from what it sounds like. So with regards to, your sales process, like what's your approach there? What are some of those strategies? Let's say someone does come in like on a referral basis. How are you converting some of those leads into long-term clients? How are you having those conversations? And are you doing this on your own right now? Because I know you mentioned, you are a solopreneur, of course, or do you have like other team members maybe involved on the outreach or like maybe making sure that, hey, this is the right ICP coming through our process? How is all of that structured?
Sure. Yeah. So as far as the process, and I was just texting with someone that was introduced to me earlier in the week, and we're going to reconnect tomorrow. And some folks out there say it's not business, it's personal, but without the people, there's no business. So first and foremost, I like to get to know the individual. What interested you in getting into franchise consulting? How long have you been consulting? What networks are you affiliated with? And then what marketing have you tried? What's worked and what hasn't worked? And that process is similar to how I coach consultants in diagnosing their prospective client or a prospective franchisee. You have to get to learn the person, hopefully learn that their why, but more importantly, their pain. Here with me, it's easy.
Mm,
Lead generation is the lifeblood of a franchise consultant's business.
yes.
The quality of them ebb and flow. There's hot ones that are hot for years, maybe just months. They go away. It's a tough business. There's a lot of parts of it that I certainly don't enjoy, but it's the coaching that I do enjoy, and quite frankly, that's a huge differentiator. There's not there's plenty of competition, but the competition that does I'll say the style of lead gen that I do, they hit it from a different approach. And for the client I'm trying to attract, they like how I engage with them and I care about them and their business and helping them overcome objections in this little niche. Go through what onboarding looks like, help them out with their talk tracks initially, and then growing from there. And it seems to be very much appreciated.
Love that. So from what it sounds like, you're really like leveraging a lot of that differentiation to really like tap in and have those conversations and really like connect, and lead gen, like you said, is the lifeline of any business. So it's almost like very no-brainer as to, hey, it makes sense to move forward. So from what it sounds like, you're having a lot of those conversations. You're like the main closer essentially in your business. Given that you're wearing all the hats, we have a lot of listeners tuning in. They're in that same position. They're still trying to figure out, how do I actually start to systematize things? How are you able to focus on that founder level work? Just curious, given that you're doing sales conversations, you're doing fulfillment, how are you navigating that?
Sure. And I did forgot to mention that I am not doing it all alone. I am the face. I'm the only person that the clients do interact with. I love virtual assistants. However, your typical virtual assistant is no different than an employee. They're good at what they're good at, and they don't know what they don't know. One thing, or I guess one resource that I not only enjoy, but also offer to fellow solopreneurs that wear all the hats, as you mentioned, is it's a virtual assistant, I guess, pod system. So if a client of mine is drowning in various what I call non-revenue generating activities, on a project or ongoing basis, we can outsource some of those things. And I don't connect them with the VA that's going to be the perfect match for them. I connect them with a customer success agent or an account manager who is the liaison between them, the stuff that they shouldn't be doing, and then the people that are best in breed at it. So I have pods of folks that do content gen, post ads for me. They'll do database mining. Any franchise consultant that's been in the space for years has hundreds, if not thousands, of leads that they know they should be reaching out to. There's only so many hours in the day. So these folks are on the phone, they're reaching out to them. And, I'm looking to expand that because I recently identified the thing that's eating up the most of my time that needs to get done. I haven't been able to outsource it yet. So I'm looking for a dedicated individual that I can offload that to, and that would be my next step.
Love that. And is that like more on like the fulfillment side or more like on the front end with having some of those conversations with, potential, good fits?
Right. So it's fulfillment. So it's right after I have the conversation, I would be able to deliver the desire of my clients and they could put it together and deliver it to my team
Mm.
that creates it and puts it out there. I'm the guy that kind of puts it together now, and it's not it's not rocket science, but you have to do certain things in a certain way, and it just has to be correct. It'll be a challenge for me to let that go, but I don't think I'll be able to grow without doing that.
Yeah, 100%. Systematizing your fulfillment, that's super important. Now, going back to, your offer right now, are you looking at even like standardizing maybe a lot of, your one-to-one engagements, a lot of like that, the project-based engagement into like more of that playbooks, assets, things that don't necessarily have to involve you as well? Are you exploring some of those ideas in the meantime?
I've given it some thought, admittedly, haven't taken action to it. I can see your wheels turning, and you can see that I have a lot of the same conversations with a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think there's power in one-on-ones, but two things I've developed is one, I've noticed a migration towards Go High Level, the CRM. So we offer a franchise consultant setup for Go High Level. Like any software, it's not perfect, but we love their support. They're always working to improve, and you get a really nice bang for your buck out of that software. And I started a monthly just user group so we can all learn from each other. Another thing that I did on a bi-weekly basis, and this just happened this morning, folks that are new to the style of lead that I provide, we just have a down and dirty, hey, let's talk about what's working and what's not working. One thing that tenured folks get this, newer folks don't, but I've been educating anyone that's going to dabble here, we want them to be good at it because
Mm,
otherwise they're unfairly putting a bad taste
mm,
in mouths out there, and it's not good for our community. For us to help each other out, despite being maybe like competitors, it's
mm,
still good for the industry. So we're having those regular calls. But back to the video, there's a lot of videos that I could generate to provide on an onboarding standpoint, a training standpoint, and then of course we could leverage that stuff for marketing as well.
Yeah, 100%. That's where the flywheel effect comes into play, and
Yep.
then you yourself, you're not in that position where you're having to, do a lot of, wearing all those hats essentially. That's really what it comes down to.
Yep.
So your growth's been incredible so far. As you're looking to scale into 2025 and really set up the runway for 2026, what are maybe some of the challenges or bottlenecks that stand out to you as you're looking at growth? Is it like even attracting some of the right types of leads, some of the right types of clients to work with? Improving maybe some of the conversions as well on the sales side? What are you most focused on solving to, keep all of your momentum going and to really grow, on the franchise consulting side?
The fulfillment piece is front of mind right now, and we're slowly tackling that.
Mm.
If I didn't have to touch any of the client reports or the ads or any of that, and all I had to do is spend time with my clients and then maybe some prospective clients, life would be great. I don't really see that as feasible anytime soon. But
Mm.
if I can get some good people up and running and have some redundancy in the operations side, then maybe that would be, that would certainly be available. I would be very open to bringing on a partner or a salesperson just to expand my bandwidth. That's a tough thing. That's a tough thing to do though. But yeah, I don't know. Do you have any ideas for me, Michelle?
I do, but I'm not gonna give away the trade secrets on the podcast.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
We'll talk about it after. But no, I love the way that you're thinking very holistically a little bit about this, not just like on the fulfillment side, but also, with hiring good talent on the sales side, right? I know we've had guests here and they always think, hey, I'm the main person having all these conversations. Is there a subject matter expert who can like take my place and execute at the same level and speed and quality that I do it, right? And from what I can tell, I think that's a little bit of your mindset, maybe even a little bit of that, okay, who is that person out there? Now, I want to get your thoughts really on really like how you see the franchise consulting industry evolving in the coming years, especially with your focus on like more personalized like matchmaking. How is Burgeon Capital Co. positioning itself for that type of future?
How are we positioning ourselves? I guess I'm not really following the question. Would you mind restructuring that for me?
Yeah, no, absolutely. How do you see just in general, like the franchise consulting industry evolving in the coming years? You guys are focused on very customized matchmaking from what
Oh,
it sounds like with
yes.
franchises. How are you prepping yourself for really just like the verticals and a lot of that changes?
Right. Yeah. Well, I think we're all eager to see what AI does. There's been conversations that say that are stating that AI is going to alleviate many consulting positions. I really don't think that's going to be the case. I do think that people using AI will replace people that aren't using AI. You need to, use that for leverage. We're already using it to increase bandwidth with, receiving leads, delegating leads, but yeah, I don't know. There's just so many different ways that it could go, but there's as logical as we think we are when it comes to decision making. Look at the stock market. There's a lot of emotions.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen computers have emotions. And when you're just changing a job, let alone actually turning off the revenue faucet, taking part of your nest egg, putting it into something, working 80 hours a week to basically pay money for a period of time, that's very emotional. So I do think there's going to be a future for consultants with empathy, with passion, compassion, and that could bridge the gap. I do think there's opportunity for consultants to do a lot more than just the matchmaking. The hardest time for a business owner is that first year.
Yeah.
And everyone feels like they're out on a little island. That's part of the reason why I think Burgeon Capital is successful because we built a little community of consultants that otherwise are floating out on their own little islands. That's a nice thing about franchising is it's much different than just buying the mom and pop shop where the previous owner hands over the keys and says good luck. You are getting training from folks that have been there, done that, made the mistakes, so you don't have to. You can build upon their foundations. And oh, by the way, there's 42, 47 other owners out there just in other cities and states. Your future peer network that I haven't seen a circumstance where they're not more than willing to help out because they needed the help when they got started and they're happy to pay that forward.
I love how the way you're thinking about it, really just like creating a lot of that mutual exchange within a community. I think that's like the missing piece is there's not a lot of that awareness and education on like how do you operationalize things in your first year, especially if you haven't even run a business before, but a lot of people gravitate, towards franchises as like that first business that they want to do, bridging that gap essentially, and I love the way you're thinking about it. A couple questions before we do wrap up, would love hear, about your vision for really scaling and growing Burgeon Capital Co. over the next 6 to 12 months. Do you have any like performance milestones, any like specific goals you're aiming for? Paint that picture for us.
So when I started, and again a few months ago, I told myself I wasn't going to get too big until it made sense. I don't want to work with 200 consultants because I can't. I'd be spread too thin. So we're already at about the magic number. Of course, there's organically going to be some attrition and more folks are going to come on. The first step of scaling is alleviating all the things that I'm doing repeatedly and anything that someone other than me can do. I'm happy to report that, in the first 3 months, I did that with about 70% of that stuff.
Mm.
But there's another 20% that eats up a lot of time, and that's where we are right now. And then, we're going to be looking at maybe expanding the VA side a little bit, potentially looking at, future partners. When I say a salesperson, we don't need a ton of help generating new business. It's there that's available. It's more so managing, so more of a customer success type person that understands franchising or business brokering, previous business owner, someone or some folks like that might be a good fit, and then we just be able to help out a lot more people. But as far as specific milestones, number of consultants or revenue, it's weird for me to hear myself say this out loud because I'm a salesperson, but we're focused more on buttoning up the operations, taking care of the current client base, and growing with them.
100%. 100%. No, I love that. I think the client success part is essentially especially is so important because, a lot of companies, a lot of like consultants, like they scale like really like fast, but then they forget that client retention and like the stickiness is so important, especially as, you want to be iterating and you want to make sure, hey, what are those friction points so you don't actually lose that momentum. So a lot of emphasis on client success from what it sounds like, which is great. Now, for the listeners, entrepreneurs, founders looking to follow in your footsteps, what's like the best piece of advice you would give to them about, scaling a consulting business, perhaps from like your past experiences? What would you say on one last note for those that are tuning in?
Try as many ideas as you physically can, network as much as possible, provide as much value as possible. You have to be a student before you can be a teacher, so have open ears. And you never really know where the next conversation is going to take you. So
Yeah.
be open to meeting new connections. If anyone's willing to introduce you to somebody, take them up on it. Most of them won't go anywhere, but you never know which one will.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I think that's what holds a lot of people back, entrepreneurs, like they don't have enough of those conversations or everyone's like shy to go on LinkedIn and, reach out.
Everyone's busy,
Yeah.
right? Everyone's busy. You can always fill your cup, but you have to prioritize what's important. And, like I said earlier, businesses are nothing without the people. And most of us don't know what business we're going to be in 5 and 10, 15 years. So just network with the like-minded individuals. Maybe not too, because good partners bring different skill sets, of course. But yeah, just keep on networking and providing as much value. Don't worry about charging for your time. If you add enough value, the revenue is going to follow.
Yeah, 100%. No, I love that. Wise words from Brian. What a way to end today's Thank you so much for joining us today. On that note, really, you're doing some incredible work. We're excited to follow the journey along as you grow Burgeon Capital, look at building your team and really empowering more aspiring entrepreneurs with franchise opportunities, the same way you did, years ago. To our listeners, if you would like to get in touch with Brian, learn a little bit more about franchise consulting or, how you could even be a franchisee, I'm sure he'll be there to start a conversation. So we'll link his LinkedIn profile below in the summary. And if you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can also find some more resources and insights at closers.io, where we're dedicated to helping businesses accelerate their growth through trained appointment setters and world-class sales systems. Until then, everyone, keep climbing, and we'll see you all on the next one.